So nothing is more fantastic than doing your entire show and then realizing that for some reason the microphone wasn't recording despite the fact the light was on, the levels weren't showing up, and I wasn't paying close enough attention to realize that was the case. Nonetheless, we're going to go through things one more time. In my original rant, I discussed the fact that I want to see George St. Pierre versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. I 100% understand why the UFC was tentative, but I think this is a huge fight to make. George St. Pierre versus Conor McGregor makes no sense. I think stylistically, George with size and his wrestling skills just runs him over. But I think Nurmagomedov after George is a fantastic matchup. I'm hoping we get an opportunity to see that in the not-too-distant future. Two great, fantastic fights. I don't think 155 is an option for George at this point in his career. I think 165 could be doable. I think that would make the most sense to see how they do at that weight. But again, huge fight. I hope the UFC can make it happen. Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson. And on this episode of the show, we are breaking down the upcoming UFC 243 event, which will transpire in Melbourne, Australia on October 5th in North America, October 6th in Australia. It will feature 5 main card fights, including the unification of the interim and regular middleweight titles, as Robert the Reaper Whittaker takes on the last stylebender, Israel Adesanya. I'll be giving you all my predictions on this episode of the show. All of my preliminary picks will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. I am coming off the most god-awful performance of my season. I went 3-10. There were 7 underdogs that came through. And I'm a little bit upset with myself because initially I had Kuntalaba and I had Burns, and I got some bad advice, or at least took some bad reads on it, and I let it influence me enough to talk me out of those fights. No, that's my mistake. Nothing I can say about that. It just was disappointing to do so poorly and so emphatically. So yeah, absolutely disappointed myself in that prediction. And of course, you hear about those things too. But hey, we get to move on and get back at it as quickly as possible. Now, you can follow me at KO_predictions on Twitter. Please like and subscribe to my channel. Like this video. I really would love to get to 100 likes on one of my videos. They do fairly well as far as views are concerned, but I'd like to get those likes up to 100, so please take a moment and do that. Also, the bet packs will be for sale for $15. I break down everything top to finish. I had 2 amazing bet packs prior to the last show, so we're looking to try and get back to a successful winning ways. We'll see if that is doable. I absolutely think it is. On that note, let's get to our first main card prediction. We open things up in the UFC's heavyweight division in a fight that got bumped to the main card. At least that's all indications I've seen across the board. We will see the debut of a pair of heavyweights as Yorgan de Castro, undefeated at 5-0, takes on undefeated Justin Tafa, currently carrying a record of 3 wins and no defeats. Now, looking at this matchup, obviously it gets the move up to the main card because of the loss of the Pennington home fight, which apparently is rumored to be rescheduled in the not-too-distant future, which I'm actually absolutely hoping happens. Now, Tafa's 3-0 as a pro. He has fought once per year since 2017, so not exactly super active. For De Castro, he won his fight on the Season 3 of the Contenders Series back in June of 2018. I think it was 2019, sorry, and has got the call as a result. Both guys 6 feet tall. I saw somewhere where De Castro is 6'1", but still not very tall for heavyweights. Tafa will be the heavier man by 15 pounds, and he's actually 7 years younger than De Castro as well. Now, Tafa's last 3 combined opponents, or his 3 only combined opponents, are 4 wins and 6 losses. 2 of them are winless. He finished all 3 of them 2 in the second round. So not exactly the type of record that's blowing the doors off people. For De Castro, his last 3 opponents are combined 11-9, but 2 of those guys are 500-level fighters. So nothing too fancy, a little more experience, but yeah. Pretty much what you expect to see low-level heavyweights, limited experience coming into the UFC. Now, De Castro's 3 first-round finishes, 1 in the third, 1 in the decision, so showed he's capable of advancing beyond the first round and getting a win, which is big. On his contenders bout, he wasn't doing much. He was losing the early stages, really struggling. He landed a brutal leg kick that put his opponent down and ended the fight as a result. It was very well executed. For the most part, he throws wide looping punches, which aren't overly effective. He's got some, but ultimately his big weapon is he's got good power in his right hand, but his big weapons are his low kicks. His low kicks are awesome. They're crushing. He can really do a lot of damage, as we saw in the Contender Series and overall in the regional scene. He's battered some guys with low kicks as well. For Tafa, he comes in this fight. Yes, he's got a lot of limited MMA experience, but his combat experience is fairly solid. He's 20-5 as a kickboxer. He fought in Glory. I think he had a 4-5 record under the Glory banner. He's got decent hands. He will brawl, surprisingly accurate when he just throws, bites down his mouthpiece and lets his hands fly, but relatively effective. He will also shoot for takedowns. He's got a pretty good single leg. He'll put his opponent down on the mat relatively well. He has been swept in some situations, and he goes for submissions, and that cost him position. But he does have that scenario where he can look to put his opponent on the ground. Now, I expect this fight's going to be over fairly quickly, or it's going to be relatively sloppy, one or the other. For Castro, his striking is ugly beyond his low kicks, and while Tafa has some semblance of a striking attack, which I think is going to be the key here, Tafa also has the option to take him to the ground. If things aren't going well, he can shoot a single leg, and that will be a big point of his success here if he can switch gears and put his opponent in a position he's not familiar with. Castro was having a lot of struggles on the Contender Series when his opponent was pursuing takedowns. Tafa also is fighting at home. He makes this fight ugly, either blasts him out of there with a flurry of strikes while standing, or gets on top and smashes him. And my prediction is Justin Tafa to defeat Yorgan de Castro by TKO. Up next, we're in the UFC's welterweight division as Luke the Jedi Jumeau, 13-4-0 out of New Zealand, takes on Dhiego Lima with a current record of 15 wins and 7 defeats. Now, Lima has won back-to-back fights. He looked pretty solid in doing so. He finished Chad Laprise. He took a split decision win over Court McGee. He had gone 1-5 in his combined 6 UFC fights prior to that, over 2 spans. For Jumeau, he's 2-1 in the UFC, all wins by decision. He beat Dominic Steele and Deche Abe, all going the distance in all 3 fights. Physically, Lima 3 inches taller. He'll have a 2-inch reach advantage. He's 1 year younger, and Jumeau's been out of action for 20 months, so he's been out of action for a prolonged period of time. Now, Lima went to the finals in his tough season. In his Ultimate Fighter season, he went to the finals. He lost. He came in with a bit of a name, definitely attributed to his brother, had lots of expectations. He had some success in the regional scene as well, but he has really struggled to find success at this level. He's been finished 3 times by knockout, once by submission. He was also TKO'd on the regional scene after getting cut by the UFC, and 5 of 7 career losses have been by some form of finish. Now, he seemed to right the ship after the Okami loss, but if you take a deeper dive on some of those fights, he was getting outworked early by Chad Laprise. Very quick fight. Laprise was having success early before getting finished. And Court McGee, it was a close fight. Court McGee has a tendency to fight very close fights, and from what I saw, Court was edging him out in rounds 2 and 3. I had Court in that matchup. He landed, a few more strikes in the last 2 rounds, but Dhiego ultimately got the nod. Lima's always had issues with pressure, both in the form of striking and grappling. But against McGee, he seemed more committed to his punches. He had a spearing jab. He was still moving backwards. And giving up position, but he was being a little more effective with his forward push. Now, Jumeau's coming out of a fight where he took a lot of damage early and nearly got finished. Did not look good in the opening round. He benefited from an opponent that slowed down. Jumeau was sitting back, attempting to counter, and he found more success in that fight when he started pushing forward and engaging, but his opponent was really teeing off on him. Nearly got him out of there in that first round. He can strike. He's way too stagnant at times with his offense. And he waits. He waits too much. He'll take damage, and he has mixed results when firing back. And if you're taking damage but not doing much on the way back, that's going to be a major issue. Now, despite a record with a lot of decision wins, he tends to slow down in rounds 2 and 3. And again, he wears that damage really visibly. Overall, Lima's the bigger man here. He has a reach advantage. He will benefit from an opponent that doesn't continuously move forward. Look for Lima to land a few takedowns. Juanito's Jumeau's been pretty vulnerable on the mat. That could be key here. Luke is at home, but again, he's been off for a long time, and some ring rust could affect a guy who really needs a strong performance out of the gates to win this matchup. I think Lima lands the bigger strikes and picks up a few takedowns where necessary, and my prediction is Dhiego Lima to defeat Luke Jumeau by decision. Returning to the UFC's heavyweight division, Bam Bam Tuivasa, ranked 14th in the division, 10 wins and 1 loss, 10 wins and 2 losses, actually. The UFC has not updated their website. Takes on the 9-1, again, they haven't updated their website here either, Sergey Spivak, affectionately known as the Polar Bear. Now, Tuivasa is looking to rebound after back-to-back defeats to Blagoy Jr., 2 fighters where he took a step up in competition. He had a very close fight, the longest of his career, with Andrei Arlovsky, so he has struggled overall in a step up in competition. He's definitely getting a step back here. Spivak's coming off again, hopefully I'm saying that correctly, coming off his first career loss. He got absolutely smashed by Walt Harris on short notice, lasting just 50 seconds in his promotional debut. He is 1 inch taller. He'll have a 3-inch reach advantage. Should be the heavier man by 5 pounds, and is also 2 years younger than Spivak. Now, looking at the Spivak first, all of his wins have come by stoppage, 4 by knockout, 5 by submission, all in round 1 but 1. And that's definitely a flag, I would say. Definitely a flag for incoming heavyweights if you get guys out of there very quickly. And once you hit this level, it could be a problem because guys aren't going to go as easily as you would expect them to do. In recent fights prior to the UFC, he beat Tony Lopez, who's got a ton of experience, Travis Fulton, who's got a ridiculous amount of experience, 2 journeymen. His other 2 recent opponents, 2-7 and 11-12 record. 11-12 had 9 losses by knockout, so 2 guys that are not good. So his level of competition has been anything but top-notch for the regional scene. Now, he loves to attack from the clinch with knees and elbows. He'll back his opponent up to the wall. In that position, he will lock up. He will go for a body lock and look to take him down with a level change. He'll initiate takedowns from just about anywhere, but definitely from the clinch. He's got good ground and pound and subs if he gets him down, and that could be a key here against Tai, who has had some issues on the mat. Spivak has some power in his right hand. He'll mix in that hand frequently. He'll also throw in some knees, especially at range, and maintains a decent pace overall. Now, against Walt Harris, he simply got run over by the bigger, more powerful, athletic, talented, quicker man. He got backed up, smashed as he was shelling up, taking some big shots, no response, and finished. Now, Tuivasa, he has similar numbers. 7 of his 8 wins have come by knockout, all in the first round. Most recently, he took out Andrei Arlovski via decision. That's the longest win of his career. He's been pushed out of his element in recent fights. He fought 8 rounds over the last 3 fights compared to 7 rounds over his first 7 appearances. That should tell you something there. And the difference in minutes is even more drastic. Now, he comes from a boxing background. He's got good power, good hands. He starts strong. He continues to push as the fight advances, but not nearly as effective. He can still get the finish. He's just not quite as effective as the fight advances. Now, versus a fighter with limited to no first-round experience, or no success outside of the first round, and no experience, not much experience, this could be a good opportunity for Tai to take himself out of his element and still find success. Push his opponent, test him, and beat him down, and take away that element, or add to his game and take away from his. And Tai moves pretty well for a big guy. He's pretty durable. I don't expect Spivak will be able to overwhelm him, especially fighting at home. There have been some questions about Tai in the mat, and we could see Sergey like to take him down and try and exploit that scenario. Ultimately, Sergey seems like he's facing pretty low-level regional competition. Well, this is a major step back for Tai, and he has home advantage. All things that favor Tuivasa here. Tai should be able to replicate the issues that Harris provided, pressing forward, putting big shots on him, and really hurting him. And my prediction is Tai Tuivasa to defeat Sergey Spivak by TKO. In the co-main event of the evening, we're in the UFC's lightweight division as raging Iaquinta ranks 6th with a 14-4-1 record. Battles it out with the 15th ranked Dan the Hangman Hooker, currently with a record of 18 wins and 8 losses, fighting out of New Zealand. Now, Iaquinta is coming off a loss to Don Cerrone, and he had a loss to Khabib Nurmagomedov not that long ago. He has lost 2 of his last 3, all fights in the main event, with a win over Kevin Lee mixed in. Top-level competition. For Hooker, he finished James Vick in his most recent appearance. He lost to Edson Barboza prior to that. He had won 4 in a row over Gilbert Burns, Jim Miller, Mark Diakese, and Ross Pearson, all very reputable opposition. Hooker is 3 inches taller and will have a 5-inch reach advantage. He is also the younger man by 3 years. Now, both fighters are primarily strikers with grappling capabilities. Iaquinta has wrestling. Hooker has some grappling with submissions. Both also have clear vulnerabilities in this fight. Iaquinta has been submitted 3 times in his career. Hooker is 1-5 in decisions. Hooker is a dangerous fighter no matter where the fight goes. He has finished all 8 of his UFC wins, 6 by knockout, 2 by submission, 5 in the first round. Hooker is the type of fighter that looks for big moments to turn fights, which when you can identify a guy like that, that is huge. In his 3 wins after round 1, he either lost the prior round or it was very close and really difficult to discern who was ahead, and then he got the finish. He averages 4.46 strikes landed per minute while giving up 5.07, so he's actually behind in the stats there. He's willing to take damage to deliver his own, and that's because he does some of his best work at close range. He gives up that reach advantage, gets on the inside, and does some clinch work and some short-range punching and striking, and his opponent's able to hit him as well. When you look at his other stats, he's 1-5 overall in decisions, 0-3 in the UFC in decisions. He was behind in the 3rd round against Edson Barboza when he got finished. Too tough for his own good in that fight, and that was a fight a lot of people had Hooker. I had Barboza. I really like the matchup there, and it really worked out effectively for us. At times, he's just way too patient. He gets outworked, lets his opponent get ahead of him, and needs a rally or a finish to get back in the fight. Now, looking at Iaquinta, he has a strong record in decisions. He's 6-2 overall. He was 6-0, losing those 5-round fights to top-level competition in the champion and, of course, Cowboy. He's given up 100-plus significant strikes in 3 straight fights. Cerrone 138, Lee 102, in a fight that Al landed 111, and then Nurmagomedov 134, who also landed 6 takedowns to complement that. Hooker, he landed 99 significant strikes in his fight against Maximo Blanco back in 2014. That's the most he's ever done, 81 against Barboza, and both those fights he's given up over 100 significant strikes. So he, not a volume guy. Iaquinta relies on heavily on his quick, accurate punching combinations. He's struggled with volume in the arsenal of Cerrone. I don't know if Hooker's going to be able to implement something like that. Iaquinta has good punching power, 7 wins by knockout, did stop 4 of his last 5 fights in a stretch he had, or 4 or 5 fights in a stretch he had where he was really having success. He's never been knocked out. He's been hurt. Cerrone hurt him. Masvidal hurt him, so his chin's not ironclad, but he's tough to put away. He has been sub 3 times. The last was in 2014. Hooker's landed 2 takedowns against Mark Diakase. He seems very rare for him to shoot in with much success. Al's not a big takedown guy either, and will most likely look to keep this fight standing. He can wrestle. I imagine he'll try to avoid it. Ultimately, it's hard to overlook Hooker's struggles in elongated fights versus Iaquinta's durability and lack of finish defeats. Hooker is fighting at home. That's huge. Al needs to be on point here. He can't afford an off performance and allow them to allow Hooker to lead the dance. He needs to avoid fighting at range, which I think is huge. I think Hooker's going to invite him into that short range where I think it's going to let Al to get right into it and really go to work. Al lands the better strikes overall, outworks him. Hooker, Al lands the better strikes, outworks Hooker in the striking exchanges, avoids those big opportunities that Hooker's going to look for. And my prediction is Al Iaquinta to defeat Dan Hooker by decision. And finally, we move to the main event of the evening in the UFC's middleweight division as the champion, Robert the Reaper Whittaker, 21-4-0, fighting out of Australia, originally from New Zealand, takes on the number 1 ranked and interim champion, the last stylebender, Israel Adesanya, from Nigeria, fighting out of New Zealand, raised in New Zealand. He's undefeated at 17-0. Now, Whittaker has won 9 fights in a row. He's undefeated at middleweight. He beat Tavares, Hall, Brunson, Jacare, and took out Yoel Romero on 2 occasions. For Adesanya, undefeated, 6-0 in the UFC. He beat Marvin Vettori, Tavares, Brunson, Anderson Silva, Kelvin Gastelum in a very entertaining matchup. These guys have beaten a lot of top-quality opposition. Adesanya, 6'4", 4 inches taller than Whittaker, the former welterweight, 7-inch reach advantage. Whittaker is 1 year younger. Whittaker's had so much success at middleweight and done it and went up so long ago. It's hard to a lot of people forget that he was a 170-pounder, which is one of the biggest success stories, if not the biggest, for guys that have moved up in weight and found success. Now, Whittaker has been out almost 16 months. And Adesanya has fought 4 times and really carved his name out in that same span. For Izzy, he likes to work a distance, stay on the outside, land big strikes. He's very creative. He's very fast. He throws hard body, quick kicks, quick low jabs. He's got that long quick low kicks. He's got that long left jab. His punches are very straight and linear, which I like, and they're very snappy. He will move in for the clinch and land knees effectively, and he does it with a lot of fluid motion. Just very much is able to do that and get on the inside and be effective. When he fought Kelvin Gastelum, he dropped him with a beautiful counter right hand. He also hurt him with a spinning elbow, nearly got the finish at the end of the fight. Overall, looked very good in a very demanding fight. He has excellent countering skills, slipping and ripping, firing strikes that really catch you off balance and can be incredibly dangerous. And again, because his punches are so linear and so straight to the point, it's difficult to avoid them, especially when you've committed to some of your offense. Now, one of the other keys that it makes him effective is he's very good at moving away under pressure. He slides out of range to avoid damage. He's got good head movement to further augment that. Every time Kelvin Gastelum tried to strike at distance, Izzy was able to move out of the way and diminish what Kelvin Gastelum was able to land. And even if he had landed something, it wasn't nearly as impactful as it could have been. Now, where Adesanya had troubles when Kelvin committed to his offense, he threw some good left hooks, he pushed forward, he landed it on multiple occasions. At times he looked a little bit tired in that fight, a little bit battered, but he rallied, and I was very impressed. I had Kelvin in that fight. I was very impressed with Adesanya and his ability to dig deep. Now, Whittaker, he is a very good striker. He's been incredibly effective. He stays very active with a long left jab. He doubles and triples it up. He moves in with the right hand to follow it. Lots of movement, fakes and feints overall to try and draw out his opponent's offense. And he throws off his opponent by staying very active. He's very effective overall. He will wing big punches when he needs to. He's got a big overhand right after that left jab. He needs to avoid being too wide with his offense, leading to counter opportunities for his opponent. Now, when he fought Yoel Romero, he was dropped in the 4th round with a massive right hand. He was hurt and still fighting, though, effectively. Romero was tired, not able to push him, but still, he was put down. Whittaker's faced primarily wrestlers, which is worth noting, or grapplers. Guys that can strike, Rafael Natal, Derek Brunson, Jacare Souza, Romero by twice. The last guy who would predominantly be known as a striker that he faced was Uriah Hall back in 2015, so that's worth noting. Whittaker can wrestle, but we haven't seen him do that in a long time. He could return to that. Adesanya's sprawl has been pretty solid. He will attack off his back, but it does take Whittaker out of his comfort zone. That could be an element. It's hard to anticipate if he looks to bring that to the table or not. The layoff and injury could be a factor for Whittaker. It's been a long time since we've seen him. How is he physically? Has he fully recovered? What's his status here? You know, Adesanya's faced good competition, but he's never faced anybody like Whittaker. Whittaker's an exceptionally talented fighter, longer than Gastelum, obviously, and just I would have loved to see that Whittaker-Gastelum matchup, but this is a great fight as well. That being said, when they say Adesanya hasn't fought anybody like Whittaker, the gritty nature of the fight with Gastelum really helped push Adesanya to be better, and I really think he develops from that fight, and it was a perfect fight to lead him into this one. I don't see Whittaker having a lot of success with his wrestling, and I don't see him deviating from his normal approach here. When I look at how they match up striking, Adesanya is too long. He's too varied. He's too fast. He's more linear, which is going to be huge when they're exchanging in close. I think the length and speed will be a massive difference. I think Adesanya hurts him. You know, Whittaker can be hurt. Thompson knocked him out back at welterweight. We've seen other guys hurt him on the feet, especially Yoel Romero. I think Adesanya can hurt him with counter strikes and eventually puts him down. And my prediction is Israel Adesanya to defeat Robert Whittaker by TKO to become the new unified middleweight champion. So those are my 5 main card predictions for UFC 243. All of my preliminary picks will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. I apologize for my voice. I realize I'm stumbling over my words a little bit. I'm a little bit congested. I just don't feel well. And of course, having gone through this twice now, seeing as that I was unable to record the show the first time I did it, it just made it a little more frustrating. But thank you very much for tuning in. The bet packs will be for sale. You can follow me on Twitter at KO_predictions. Head over to my website to check out everything else we have to offer there, and I will talk to you in the not too distant future as we have another fight right around the corner. Take care, guys. Hi.